What's up, YouTube? It's Ben, and in this video, we're going to talk about cold calling. All right, so first things first, I'm going to call myself out and acknowledge that personally, my favorite strategies are cold email outreach at high volume with LinkedIn automation. That's just me. However, I'm definitely going to be fair enough to acknowledge the fact that cold calling can be an effective strategy. It's just not my personal favorite. However, with all of that being said, I do have extensive cold call experience from previous jobs I've had and in my recruiting agency as well. To be specific, over time in past jobs and in recruiting, I've made about 100,000 cold calls. And with that being said, I'm fairly experienced in this area, and I'd like to share some of that experience with you in this video. One of my biggest tips on cold calling recruiting clients is to have a format, not a script. Scripts simply do not work. It's too robotic. It's not genuine. It just won't fly. Anybody that you ever call using a script knows you're using a script. They know it's not genuine. And if it's not genuine, it's just not going to work. And everyone hates it. A format is much different. A format is like a framework for how the call should go. It's essentially a roadmap for what you want to achieve on the call throughout. For instance, in my mentorship program, I give my students a framework. I give them a format by which to run the call, and there's certain milestones that you should hit throughout the call at each and every step. Also, there's certain ways to bring the call back on track when it goes sideways, because it definitely will. If you plan on cold calling a ton of recruiting clients, you have to understand that every single person you talk to is not going to vibe with your script. Therefore, that's why the framework or the format works so much better, because every single person isn't going to match up properly with what you have to say. You're going to be about 10 times more effective if you're using sort of a framework, blueprint, that type of thing, rather than a robotic script that everyone's going to hate. My next tip is to know what to expect when someone picks up. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I know what to expect when somebody picks up? Well, first things first, have you done your research? Do you know what line you're calling? Are you calling a general company line? Are you calling a direct desk line? Are you calling a cell phone? Do you have an extension? Do you even have the name of the person you want to talk to? Now, by knowing what number you're calling or who you might reach, you're definitely going to better understand what to expect when somebody picks up the phone and says hello. Now, always make it your goal to get on the line with a decision maker. So scrub around the internet, find out that person's full name so that when somebody picks up, you can either ask for them or you can be ready to speak with them directly or get inside of their voicemail. Dropping a voicemail into a decision maker's phone line is essentially like sending an email on steroids. Something really important that you should always keep in mind is to always expect rejection. About 9 times out of 10, you are going to fail to get on the phone with the decision maker on that first cold call that you make. If you don't understand this, you're going to get deterred or discouraged very, very early, and that's not good whatsoever. Cold calling is definitely a long game strategy, and you have to get good at it, and you have to keep going. If you fail early, keep on going. Don't worry about it. Don't ever take rejection personally. Now, at the very same time, you have to expect success as well. After all, you're cold calling, and you're trying to get on the line with decision makers to get ready to chat with them about using you as a recruiter. So know your numbers, understand your guarantee, your fee, your net collection terms, know all of your numbers, and be prepared for a possible 45-minute call with the decision maker. You might be closing somebody on that dial that you make. So putting 2 and 2 together, understand that you're oftentimes going to be rejected. You're oftentimes not going to get on the line with the decision maker, but with that 1 out of 10 chance, you are going to directly land on a decision maker that's ready to chat numbers with you right away. And if you're not ready, that call is going to suck. Now, my next tip is what you say depends entirely on who picks up the phone. Let's say that you get a decision maker on the line right away. First things first, make it defined who you are, exactly why you're calling, a brief introduction, and then immediately ask a question. That question could be anything from, are you still hiring for XYZ position? Or, hey, how's your day going? When speaking with a decision maker, you always want to make this phone call all about them and their needs and their pain and why you can help. That's what the call is all about. You want to lead this thing down the format of a close. That's the goal after all, right? Why did you call them in the first place? To close them on utilizing you as a recruiting vendor. They want to know that you care way more about them than you. Now let's talk about what you say if you get a gatekeeper picking up. A gatekeeper is somebody that's between you and the decision maker. It could be an executive assistant or just a receptionist. Generally, the first thing that I would say to a gatekeeper is, can you help me out? The reason that I use this psychologically is because people are mostly hardwired to be able to help whenever they are asked to help. So generally, a gatekeeper will do so if you frame the call in that way. Now, of course, once you ask the gatekeeper if they can help you out, they're going to ask you, what can I help you with? And you're going to ask them a simple question. Hi, I'm calling and I wanted to speak with John Smith. Are you able to connect me? Notice that I did not volunteer any information about who I am, why I'm calling, or any of that business. At the end of the day, it's way better if you don't say anything about that and let them ask you. If they do ask who you are and why you're calling, of course, tell them who you are and why you're calling. But keep it brief and keep it simple and short. Don't be deceptive or tricky or try to say, oh yeah, John asked me to call him back or anything like that. It never works out. And once we actually do get on the phone with the decision maker, you need to be professional and frame the call. Like I said earlier, you want to make this call all about them and not you. Position yourself as help for someone that needs it. Be convincing yet casual. Do not pitch. When you're speaking with a decision maker, simply try to educate and influence them. My next piece of advice is to be prepared for just about anything. When you're cold calling, you have to understand and remember that just about anything can happen on that call. You have no idea where the decision maker is going to take it. It can go sideways real quick, and it could go really well or really bad. Basically, what I'm saying is, think about anything that could come up and be prepared to think quick on your feet. Now, some very common questions that prospects will ask are, tell me a little bit more about your agency, or what do you know about our industry, or hey, do you even have candidates right now that you can send me? Now, when you encounter someone asking you these questions, be concise with your answers, be brief, but also be strategic. Answer something with a short, simple, sweet, to the point answer, and then throw the ball right back into their court and ask a question. Always ask a question after you are asked a question. The reason for this is that once you do that, the decision maker is then obligated to basically start talking about something else and move off of that subject or flip it to a different type of subject. By running a conversation in this format, it also shows that you're engaged, you're interested, and you're asking a lot of questions. Being inquisitive is a really, really good sign for a prospect. A really simple piece of advice is to be super strategic with the times that you call. Now, this is pretty straightforward. You want to call decision makers when you think they're going to be available, when you think they're actually going to pick up the phone. One way to do this is to avoid the traditional lunch hour, which is generally somewhere between 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. at your decision maker's local time, of course. It just makes common sense that between those hours, the decision maker is probably not going to be in the office. Or if they're in the office, they're having a working lunch or something of that nature, and they're not going to pick up the phone. Along with that goes not calling too early in the morning and not calling too late in the afternoon as well. In all my experience cold calling, the best times I've ever cold called are 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Now that right there is a solid 5 hours of as many cold calls as you can bust out in that day. With every single cold call you make, the goal should be to get on the line with a decision maker, pique their interest about your services, talk to them about your terms, and then get them to give you a verbal yes and say that you're going to send over a contract. Always, always, always finalize your cold call with a call to action or a next step. Depending on how that call goes, that call to action or next step could be asking them when they're going to be reviewing the contract you're sending over or setting up a future call to follow up with them and discuss terms further. Anything that's going to lead you closer to the actual close of the deal is what you want to make your call to action or next step. Above all else, remember that cold calling should not be your only strategy. You should always be combining your cold call efforts with cold email outreach as well as LinkedIn activity for a trifecta of a full spectrum of outreach in order to acquire recruiting clients frequently and quickly. I truly hope this video helps you out on your cold calls. If you found value here, please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and the alert button so you know every single time I come out with a brand new video. Until then.